What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel with On 3 today on the Hard Count. What does success look like for Texas in 2022, and how do they get there? Welcome into the Hard Count on 3, the People's Show. For everything that you know and that you love about college football, it happens here on a nearly daily basis. Nick Brake, doing the heavy lifting. You can help drive the show at my Twitter page, at JD Piquel. Now, speaking of Twitter, not too long ago, jumped in a Twitter Spaces with some of the dons of Texas Twitter. It was 40 Acre Landlord, it was Texas Homer, it was Doc Allen, no Kyle Umlang. But essentially, we just posed the question, hey, what would success look like for Texas in 2022? Obviously, coming off a 5-7 year in 2021, and a lot of people were upset. Nobody was calling for Sark's job or anything like that, but obviously that is well below the standard in Austin. And so we just posed the question, how many wins would it be for Texas? How many wins are you happy with? And we got a myriad of answers, from just better than 5-7 to Big 12 title. The number that we landed on more or less was 8 to 9 wins. Hey, if we get 8 or 9 wins, we're probably okay with the year in 2022. Now, it may not be the long-term solution. It may not be what we hope for in the long term with this recruiting class and with Quinn Ewers and this, that, and the other. But we're going to be okay. We're going to put our pitchforks down if we can get 8 wins, 9 wins. And so that begs the next question is, okay, well, how do you get there? That's great. You have a coordinates that you've charted. That's great that they're somewhat realistic by most people's expectations. But how do you get there? So just went down the line and said, okay, this needs to happen for Texas to reach their expectations and be successful in 2022. So the first thing for Texas to get where they want to go, defense has got to get better. They allowed 31 points a game in 2021. That's not going to cut it. I know the offense played really well last year, and they can score a lot of points again this year, but if you can't stop anybody, you got problems in Austin. Return 4 starters. I'm excited to see what they look like from an X's and O's standpoint, but even more so, what does a guy like DeMarvion Overshown put on tape this coming year? Because a lot of people are looking to him to be a leader for this defense. And the guy's a freak. He moved from safety to linebacker, so we know he can run. But the biggest thing for me is, what does this defense do from an effort standpoint? And I know that sounds cliche to a degree, but there were times I saw last year guys like DeMarvion Overshown, supposed to be leaders on this defense, jogging after a screen play against Kansas. You can check the tape and see lack of effort plays. I think Bo Davis said it really well. He threw the gauntlet down and said, if you don't want to be here, get in the portal. And a lot of guys did. So the defense needs to improve, yes, from an X's and O's standpoint, and I think they will, but even more so from a culture standpoint. We talk about that with Texas a lot. The revamp needs to start on defense. DeMarvion Overshown stepping up as a leader is one of the first dominoes to fall in that revamp. So for the Texas defense, has got to take another step. You can't allow 30 points a game and expect to get where you want to go. The second piece of this, the transfers need to gel. They need to gel fast. Anytime you're the new kid in school, it's going to take some time to get up to speed. Luxury for Texas, they got a lot of those new kids into school for the spring semester. They went through spring ball. And the reason why this is so important, a lot of these transfers are in a position to make an impact. A lot of these guys are going to play in the fall and play early. A lot of these guys are going to be starters. Jaleel Billingsley being one of them. Has he bought into the culture at Texas? Has he bought into what he needs to do to take that next step as a player? A lot of things were said about him at Alabama and this, that, and the other with him not getting along with Saban, and that's all kind of a narrative, but has he taken a new perspective at Texas? Guys like Isaiah Nayor, he's going to be looked to a lot, playing opposite of Xavier Worthy. Is he able to get on the same page with Ewers? Because anytime you have a new receiver and a new quarterback, it takes a second to get on the same page timing-wise. You can't be throwing it out late to your guy Nayor, otherwise that's a pick six the other way. You can't be going late to Jaleel Billingsley over the middle, otherwise he's getting his block knocked off. So if they can get on the same page timing-wise sooner rather than later, that's going to be a really big deal. Texas has a couple of favorable games at home. They got Baylor at home. They got Iowa State at home. Not favorable opponents, but games that you're glad that you have them in Austin. Another game you have in Austin is Alabama week 2. And you better have your timing right week 2 in Austin. You better have your timing right when the Crimson Tide come to the crib. Because if you don't, it's going to show. We will learn a lot about this Texas team in week 2. We'll learn a lot about how far along this Texas team is, especially on offense in week 2 against Alabama. So gelling, especially with the guys they brought in from the transfer portal at the skill position, is going to be crucial to the success of this team, especially early. Now, this is perhaps the most important piece of Texas achieving their success in 2022 to me is the stability at the quarterback position, something you didn't really have a whole lot of season ago. It was Hudson Card, then it was Casey Thompson, then it was Hudson Card, then it was Casey Thompson. Ultimately, Thompson was your guy for the rest of the year. But when you have two leaders on offense, you have none. And to be frank, Quinn Ewers, he didn't come to Austin to sit. He came to play. So assuming he's going to be the guy in Austin, you need to stick with him. You need to stick with him through the ups, through the downs, through the week 2, whatever happens at Alabama onward. And I'll give you an example. My wife and I went through premarital counseling before we got married, and one of the biggest things they tell you in premarital counseling, the person you get married to on your wedding day, it's going to be somebody different year 2, year 3 of your marriage. It's weird, but stick with me. The same thing is true for Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers in this marriage. Quinn Ewers is going to be a different quarterback in week 2 against Alabama than he is in week 9. You have to stick with the ups and downs, the bumps and bruises. It's not going to be a ready-made solution for Texas. For Quinn Ewers, it's probably going to take some time for him to get up to speed. Now, obviously, you want that sooner rather than later, but it may take a second and a half for him to get going. For Steve Sarkisian, you got to stick with Quinn. You got to be committed to him. There may be some nights where Quinn Ewers is sleeping on the couch and you just have a disagreement and you don't see eye to eye. Stick with him. Through the highs and lows, for better or for worse, commit to Quinn Ewers, and this team's going to head the right direction. So to put this all together, to wrap this whole thing up, Texas needs to go through the awkward phase right now. They need to just accept that. You could have an 8 or 9 win season based on the talent you have on this roster. You just have to accept the fact that it's going to be awkward to start. You have a lot of first-year players under Steve Sarkisian in this system, a defense that's going through a revamp, and a first-year quarterback and a second-year head coach. It's awkward. Just like that mold that Quinn Ewers had. He had to accept the awkward phase when he was growing that thing out. I guarantee you, there were a lot of people talking to Quinn Ewers when he was halfway through growing that mold saying, man, what are you doing? You got the long in the back, and it's kind of getting long. You got this weird short thing going on in the front. It's a fringe. What are you doing? Cut it. Quinn said, no, I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go through the process. I'm going to get through this awkward phase to get where I need to go. Texas has got to accept the awkward phase of where they're at right now. They can still be successful, but if they commit to these things, to getting to where they want to go, it's going to bode well in the long, long run past 2022 for Texas. So that's it for us here on The Hard Count. Appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe to the channel to stay up with every single thing we're doing here. We don't want you to miss a minute of it. Follow me on Twitter at JD Piquel. We are going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.